What's your first racing memory, Dale? What would that be?
My first racing memory was being at the dirt tracks in around Charlotte, North Carolina. There's a Concord Metrolina. I don't know which one I was at, but I remember being at a race. I'm probably 6 or 7 years old and seeing cars go by. I just have this sort of old memory of watching my dad go by. Actually, he was running second to Gary Ballou, who was a really, really good short track racer from up and down the East Coast. And Gary Gary won the race. Dad run second. I just remember that vividly for whatever reason, that little snapshot. And a couple other moments of, being at certain races or racetracks. I remember being at, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I remember being at qualifying for the Charlotte race, I think the World 600 in 82 or 83. And those were the early memories for me.
Did you know for sure you wanted to race? I mean, is that it? Or did you right?
Oh, yeah. When I was a little boy, I was 6 or 7 years old, I was a football player for Halloween I had this basic plain, no number jersey. And the pants, the pads, the helmet, the shoulder pads. I was this football player for like 4 years straight on Halloween until it never fit anymore. And I wanted to be a Washington Redskin. I wanted to play football for the Redskins. So as a kid, that was my dream. But then, I started going to races and really understanding what my dad was doing, what racing was, and immediately fell in love with that and wanted to become a race car driver. But I knew, I'd seen sons try to follow their dads into that sport.
Yeah.
Not always easy to do. Doesn't always work out. It's very hard because if you aren't as good, you catch a lot of flack. You get beat up pretty bad by the fans if you don't measure up. And so I knew it was going to be tough. But I watched my dad win and succeed and celebrate, and it just was amazing. I was in awe of him, and I was kind of crazy about how people looked at Dad, like how Dad was treated. I'm like, man, I want to do this. People love what he does. People love him. Mm-hmm. This looks fun. And I worked a job. I worked a real job for a while. And
which one?
My first job was changing oil. I got a speeding ticket, and Dad said I had to go get a job to pay for the lawyer, to pay for the ticket, to get it reduced to a muffler ticket or something like that, mm-hmm. in proper equipment. And so I got a job pumping gas at Exxon station. Then I worked building race cars at a shop for a while. I worked for about 3 or 4 years in a dealership, changing oil, quick lube guy, 29 minutes or less. Come in, I'd change your oil, change transmission fluid, whatever you wanted. Yeah. I worked in several jobs in the service department of a dealership. So I worked as the assistant to the engine guy. This was the best job. If you blowed the motor in your car, broke your transmission, mm-hmm. He'd bring the car in. I'd pull the faulty part, the faulty transmission or the faulty motor, and he'd fix it. He'd put the right one in. Uh-huh. So I was kind of helping him, expedite his job and his business. And I did that up in, I don't even remember how long, but the racing thing, I was racing while I was doing that job. I ran 159 late model races at Myrtle Beach, Nashville, Tennessee, Florence, South Carolina, all around in the Mid-Atlantic region. And I won 4 of those 159 starts. So I didn't think I was going to make it. I wasn't winning enough races to get a break. And, but a break happened. I got an opportunity to race a car at Michigan in the Xfinity Series in 97, and I ran in the top 10 and raced with Dale Jarrett and a bunch of guys that my dad raced against. My dad was there. Of those 159 late model races I ran, my dad never saw one of them.
No kidding.
So he never knew whether I was good, bad. He never watched me and went, okay, yeah, he's doing this, he's doing that. He had no clue how to judge me as a race car driver, only by the stats, really. So I didn't think that was going to be good enough. But he gave me an opportunity to race in one of his cars, and that day I was able to showcase some good things, and it's kind of steamrolled from there.
The rest being history. Dale Earnhardt Jr. here, Racing to the Finish, available right now where books are sold. Well, I'll say this. In terms of what you said as a little kid, I want to do that. I want to be as successful as Dad, and you saw how your dad was successful and beloved. Yeah. You've succeeded in both, man. I mean, you have. I don't know. You're a humble guy. You might not want to say, okay, but you have.
Well, I'll say this. I've always owned the fact that I gained a ton of race fans prepackaged without any, without really any
Sure.
any statistics to back it up. So I understood that, and I knew that coming in. But I feel like from the moment I got into the Cup Series all the way until I retired, that we nurtured and grew that fan base. We grew it, and we helped grow the sport. I feel like that we did a lot of things that NASCAR drivers typically didn't have the opportunity to do, to go mainstream and get into publications like MTV Cribs or Rolling Stone magazine. And I know that I had that key to the door because of the Budweiser relationship, and we had a lot of opportunities through that relationship through Budweiser. But I felt good about what I did as a driver. I won more races than I ever thought I would. I did not think that I was going to win the Daytona 500 in my life. I didn't think that I was going to have the success that I had on the track. I, of course, never imagined what would happen off the track, the fans, the opportunities to do those publications and things that people, late night shows, I never thought this would be my life. So I feel like we did a really good job taking something that we probably didn't deserve and making more out of it. And it was a good ride, man. It was a lot of fun.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.